Hi, my name is Brett. I am a software developer. I recently decided to stop using AI for coding at work after using it for about 18 months. I wrote a blog post and made a video talking about my experiences, sharing how it was really negatively affecting me, and so much so as to stop using it, even if that means I have to find a different career or whatever that may mean. I don't know. The future is uncertain right now. That video and that blog post got shared around a ton. Right now, it's just about 2 days since I published the video, and it has over 250,000 views, which is pretty surprising and shocking. I didn't expect that. I thought maybe a couple dozen people would watch it and not be interested in it. And the response has been overwhelmingly uplifting, and really a lot of people, I think, experiencing similar thoughts and feelings and appreciating me sharing my experiences. So that's been really validating. I have a lot of thoughts about this topic and AI and why I'm not using it. So I thought it would be great to make a follow-up where I respond to some of the things that were brought up and mentioned and share how it's going. So I'm a week into not using AI for coding at work. That's not to say that I haven't, this is the first time I've written code without AI in the last 18 months, because I've been doing personal projects without using AI, and that's part of what led me to this decision. So I'm not completely rusty, but that feeling of picking up linear tickets, the task tracking tool that I use at work, and writing the code myself in that context, in that language. Like, my personal programming has been with Rust and Lua, but yeah, working in TypeScript and Ruby and Next.js and, working in a different mode other than just personal projects. Yeah, complete night and day difference. I cannot express how much more I am enjoying the work, how much happier I am while doing it and after doing it. It's really I really think, for the teams that I have been a part of and have led, that happy engineers do their best work. I think that's true at large for any work, but in particular where you're problem solving and you're doing this mixture of technical work and creative work, and you're making something, maybe you're fixing something or improving it, that when you are in a good headspace and you are feeling good, the amount of work you get done and the quality of that work you get done is much, much higher. And I think that's a really important part of being a leader, is not pushing people and crushing them to have their highest output as possible, which is largely in part what the AI coding tools are about, is about quantity rather than quality. And it's about speed when I say quantity. And so, yeah, for me, that's amazing. That's incredible. I'm feeling like I made the right decision. Absolutely, no regrets, no doubts about that. There hasn't been any backlash or any issues yet, even though that video did go weirdly viral. I don't know if there will be consequences for that, but I am glad to have shared my thoughts and experiences. And yeah, I don't know what the future will bring, but as of right now, I'm getting things done, and that feels great. There's been a few different things. I have my notebook. There's been a few different things that I wanted to talk about, a few different ideas that were shared, and that I have thoughts and responses to. So the first one is that, well, why don't you just use AI for the tedious stuff, for the boilerplate stuff? Like, you went too far giving, what I, in my mind, I call, say, going full agentic, where you're just prompting, here's the linear ticket, here's what I want you to do, here's how I want you to structure the code, make an API endpoint here that returns data shaped like this. Like, I went full AI, right? And that was this progressive, like full agentic, just hand it all off to Claude. That, and then review the code and test it, right? But then even that, like, you start to get a little lazy, you start to, you're reviewing the code a little less, you start to lose that grip. So a lot of people saying, well, just don't go full agentic, right? I use it for the tedious stuff, use it for find and replace, use it for refactoring something where it's, covered by end-to-end tests, or however people use it. And I understand where those people are coming from, where they probably aren't experiencing the negative emotional effects of AI as much as I was. And that is totally understandable. But here's the thing. If this technology existed in a vacuum and it had no negative consequences to any other humans, beings on the planet, the environment, the economy, etc., maybe I would reconsider whether or not I would use it a little bit. But given the cost, the cost not only in terms of money, right? Not the cost per token. I'm talking about cost in the greater sense, beyond dollar and cents, which is the environmental impact, the impact on the economy and the cost of hardware, the I think emotional damage that these tools can cause. I don't think it's worth it. And I think by even using it just a little, by making those numbers go up, even on just an individual level, I cannot do it in good conscience. And it's worth knowing a little bit about who I am, and that I feel very similarly about not eating animals and animal products. I have been vegan for over 10 years, and it's very similar in my mind. It's a moral decision, right? Part of it is about how I feel and my experiences, but part of it is actually about choosing not to do that. Now, does individual action solve the problem? No. Maybe at a mass scale, maybe there's a movement that starts to build or it starts to make change. But that's part of why I'm sharing this experience in my journey, is that this is an ethical decision in addition to a personal health decision and a career decision. It's so multifaceted. So that's why I won't use AI, even just for the tedious stuff. I'll also say that I think that the tedious parts of programming and the boilerplate parts of programming are actually what leads to writing better code. So if you look at something like Next.js or Ruby on Rails or different web frameworks and libraries, they are the result of boilerplate, right? We write code libraries to abstract concepts or remove boilerplate and make something that's simpler and easier to use. And I think that when you remove the tedious part and you don't feel the pain, you're less incentivized to actually solve those technical problems or refactor code and make it better. So I saw someone say something once, which is like, if you want to just eliminate the tedious parts of coding, then you're fundamentally engaging with this idea of software engineering in a different way than I am. And I really agree with that, and I think about that a lot. And like, for example, having to do some tedious things or debugging or searching for how to solve problems. And that was, I had to engage my brain in a different way. And that actually felt really good. It was like riding a bike, where it was a little tricky at first, but then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm like back in the zone and I can't just have the easy out. And I like that feeling. So that's the first one. Relatedly is I will see some people have shared that they don't use the AI to write their code, but they use it for learning. And they really like that experience. Maybe they have a difficult time reading books and engaging with books in that way. Maybe they've tried to ask for people's help in Discord and had really negative experiences with people, judging them harshly or not being kind in their helping of that person. And to be able to prompt the AI and get that personalized help really helps them. And I think that the The ethical aspect of it still applies, so that's why I don't use it in that way and won't. But then there's also this idea of learning and how we learn as software developers that I've been thinking a lot about over the last few months and applies to that feedback, which is when you run into a problem, that exact problem, if it was run into by other people, you'll find an answer instantly and can just apply it. And it's like not a big deal. But if you have a challenge or you want to learn something or do something that's non-trivial and you end up searching online for it, you will usually find something that's similar but not quite the same. And what this forces you to do, like maybe a Stack Overflow answer or a blog post, and what this forces you to do is understand it enough to apply it to your problem. That translation and application and level of understanding is significantly different and significantly deeper than the AI just giving you the right answer. It's sort of like if you were in school and you asked your math teacher what is 5 times 5, and they just said it's 25, rather than actually teaching you how to multiply. That might be too trivial of an example, but hopefully you get the gist, which is that when you have a tool that is trained to try to please you, and then just gives you the answer right away, I don't think the learning is as deep. I don't think it is going to stick with people as much. And that really worries me. I also think, historically in my career, people don't read the documentation enough. And I think that's actually like a big differentiator, is like going and reading the documentation for different modules or types or functions in a library or the standard library, and then also reading the source to see how it's implemented. That is, I think, a much better way to learn more deeply. And so I'm somewhat suspect of using the AI for that purpose. And I if your goal is to just like get the thing done and move on, like that's fine. I'm talking specifically about like the craft of enjoying software engineering. I'm not talking about like just getting it done and checking things off a list, right? I think it's the craft and the care. It leads to better code, and I think it leads to better software. So that's my thoughts on learning. I like reading books about coding. I like writing books about coding. I've written 3 different books about programming, and I think that's it's like a fun way to spend my time. I do it, for topics that aren't related to my work or making money or something. So, yeah, I'd say that about learning. One person had some really good feedback. They told me to go outside, so that was helpful. They told me to get a girlfriend. My wife did not appreciate that. And they told me to cut my hair. So I haven't done any of those 3 things. I think that is probably my primary problem. So I will work on those things the best I can, my dear commenter. So thank you for that. There was a lot of people telling me I wasn't prompting right, and that's what led to the way I was feeling and what I was experiencing, which is kind of absurd and missing the point. So just funny. There was one comment in particular, and I think that will lead to a story that goes a little bit deeper into my experiences that I wanted to share, which is someone said, welcome to the, welcome to the group of people who hate AI. Like the artists are here and ready to welcome you. And I love this comment, and that this person watched this video of me talking about it from a coding perspective, because I noticed this thing, and that is what led to this journey. Earlier in this year, I wrote a book on how to program games for the Playdate console. It is this little tiny yellow game device, almost like, a Game Boy. And you can make games for it in Lua or with C. My friend sent me his Playdate, and I immediately was like, oh, I want to, program for this. This would have been 2 years ago at this point. So I start learning it, and there's not a ton of resources, so I start writing this book. And I write the book, and it takes about 2 years to write it. And in the middle of that time period is this rise of agentic programming and me using AI for that time period, and I stopped working on it. And then I in the beginning of the year, wanted to finish the book because I was actually already accepting like early access purchases of it. So I returned to the book, returned to writing it, and very explicitly, intentionally not using AI. And the company that makes the Playdate, the company name is Panic. They also make like FTP software for Mac, like Transmit, and they've been around for a long. They make the Nova editor for Mac, but they also started publishing games. Anyway, they have a thing called the Catalog, which is their store for Playdate games. And around this time, they have a new policy which says we will not accept games that have generative art in them, and if you use it for coding, you have to disclose it. And that led me to reading a lot of people's responses and thoughts about AI usage in games. And games are this interesting mixture of coding and technology and art, right? You have music and visual assets and game design. And reading all of these people basically being like, thank you, Panic, this is incredible. Like, fully support this. Like, we don't want these AI games in the catalog store. Opened my eyes to be like, oh yeah, people hate AI. Like, for good reason. Especially in art, because, what people develop these styles and these skills and these creative outlets, and then to just have these companies steal all that, train on it, and then be able to have people prompt it, and it just like looks off, and like it really, I think there's a much stronger negative reaction outside of tech to AI, and I'm in this little tech bubble. So then seeing this from the game dev space and talking to some friends in that space who aren't programmers, and just hearing like, oh yeah, like AI is bad. Like the opinion of it is super negative, and that's what led me to start thinking and learning more and reflecting on it. And I think when you're in this programming headspace and you're in this like tech company headspace, where especially because it like seems neat, and like I said, like it felt magical, right? When it starts spitting out all this code, you lose. I lost sight. I'll speak for myself. I lost sight of the kind of bigger picture and what's the cost of this. So all of that rambling is just to say that stepping outside of tech and seeing how AI feels greatly influenced how my current position on it. Also, another random example, 2 weeks ago, driving with my family to go somewhere, and, a couple hours from where we live, pull off the exit, and when do you see all these signs saying no data center, right? Like in the backwoods of the state I live in. And you have these people who are fighting against this idea of this data center being built in their backyard. And while data centers existed, before, the rapid expansion of them for the AI companies, right? People don't want that stuff in their communities, and creative people don't want it. And I think for me, I hope that there can be this. I hope it's possible to be a programmer who doesn't use it, has the position I have on it, and is able to earn a living. But maybe not, right? Like, time will tell there. But it'll be a journey for sure. And then finally, the last thing I want to respond to is a person said, here's a different perspective. I'm an architect / product person who is enamored with the ability to rapidly prototype and iterate with AI. My newfound power, I think, is the phrase that was used. And first off, I don't know what an architect is. I don't think they mean a person who designs building architecture. But also, I don't know what architect means. Like, a product person does not architect the software. I think of architecture as like, what language are we using? What key dependencies are we using? Where are we hosting it? How are we monitoring it? Like, these kind of bigger technical questions. Maybe architect in terms of like what features software does or doesn't have. But I think that's just product management. So anyway, I won't nitpick that anymore. But this sentiment of, I am a person who uses AI and I am now empowered by it and I wasn't before, I just don't agree. Like, you could prototype and rapidly iterate before AI. You could create wireframes in so many different tools that are low fidelity but have the user flow, and you can give it to people to test it. You can collaborate and talk about what is or isn't possible, or what is or wouldn't be easy with, an engineer. Like, oh, if we changed the flow this way, it would actually fit into this, and it'd be much simpler to implement, or whatever. You could do it with pen and paper. I have done it with all of those, right? And AI didn't suddenly allow people to prototype. What it did allow is the generation of code that feels like production software. But I actually, like, wireframing was an intentional, it wasn't like, we're doing this low fidelity wireframing because there's no other option. It's actually because you want to figure out the general flow and the layout when you're not super connected to the way it looks, right? So you're focused more on behavior, flow, functionality rather than polish. And so while I understand what people say when they say, oh, well, now I can do this prototyping or build things or whatever, is you can do that without AI, and you could do that before. And I actually don't, I think it's less collaborative when you're just like, and this is what's happening in my day job, is you have these non-technical people prompting and building an experience and sending it, and then you're like looking at the source code and checking it out, and it's not collaborative where it used to be. And I think that's collaborative between product people and designers and developers. I think that's like the main thing of what I'm saying with all of this, is this like desperate need for humanist thinking with all of this technology, humanist and environmental thinking. We don't need to go as fast as possible. We don't want as many lines of code as possible. Like, we want to do things, I think we should be doing things that are centering humans and the environment and long-term sustainability, rather than going really fast, especially if it's to like make a buck, or I don't even really know how much buck making there is. But that's a whole different topic I'll talk about from firsthand experience. But it's really, especially the negative feedback is, things like, oh, the economy doesn't care about your feelings, or, whatever. But it's like, what is the point of being a human if it's not to like think about and care and support other humans? And I think that the way AI is being applied to programming and technology, it's like very anti-humanist, and I think that that's so concerning. So I think there's this narrative that's like, you cannot code, you cannot be employed if you do not use AI, you cannot prototype. Like, this stuff's only been around for about a year in its current form, and all of this stuff was possible and is still possible without it. So whether or not businesses and managers and whatever make certain decisions about, you have to use or not use a thing, that's very different from reality and what is or isn't possible. So that's all my responses and rambling. I'm feeling good, no regrets, lots to say, lots of thoughts. Excited to keep sharing them, and hope you're doing well. All right, thank you, bye.